Hello everyone, on to the next session, FiReStarters 2. You will of course be familiar with the drill now, where I'm looking at companies who are improving the world in the work that they do. In each case, I believe, if not exactly startup companies, then companies that haven't been around a huge length of time, but all of which are pushing in their particular fields in interesting and exciting and very innovative ways. So I'm going to crack off now, and I want to start first of all with Timothy Mitchell of .ain, who is this very day launching his project, and I'd like Timothy to explain how .ain is promising to change the world, improve the world.
So, thank you for the opportunity to introduce .ain. Today we are announcing the world's first fully functional artificial intelligence network. Now, let's take a second to consider that. Intelligence is not the ability to walk around a room or to hold a conversation. Newborn children cannot walk around a room or hold a conversation. However, they are considered one of the most intelligent beings in existence. This is because they have the ability to learn by observing the way their environment reacts to their actions and changing their actions to get a better outcome. We have a working artificial intelligence that is able to observe its own actions and the actions of those around it in order to learn from those behaviors and change the actions that it takes to get a better outcome. I am fully aware that there have been many attempts to develop artificial intelligence, and to date there have been great successes in developing intelligent platforms that use reactive programming. The difficulty with reactive programming is that it can never exceed the actions written by the original administrators. This means that when presented with the same circumstances, they will always react in the same fashion. Our artificial intelligence will actually change the actions that it takes based on prior experience from success or failure. Now, the way we've deployed this system is in the construction of business IT networks. The ability to generate nearly limitless volumes of manpower at extremely minimal cost gives us the capacity to bring incredible efficiencies to the IT department. Things such as 100% uptime for all of your services, 90% reduction in the manpower necessary to run your IT systems, 50% reduction in the cost of operations for your IT department, 40% reduction in the electrical usage for data centers, and the ability to do full compliance and audit reporting to any standard in 6 seconds. We also have the capability of predictively scaling applications so that service capacity is available before demand and load arrives. Look, the system is no pipe dream, nor some vision of a possible World's Fair future. The system is here today, and it is already always functioning, always learning. We intend to deploy this system to unleash the amount of intellectual power that is currently locked in IT departments and squandered on doing nothing but basic computer repair. Thank you.
Well, there you are. There is a promise to improve the world, if ever I heard one. And you heard it here first. Fantastic. Moving on now, I want to talk to, perhaps, I suppose there's a continuity here, isn't there? If I refer now to Virtustream, Simon, you are working within, you're the Chief Vertical Market Strategy and Marketing Manager of Virtustream, which is focused on the cloud. Explain more.
Yeah, so Virtustream is really an enterprise cloud solution company. We saw what was happening in the cloud world, a chance to make IT really dynamic, scalable, on demand, and get lots of efficiency and agility out of multi-tenant, so sharing equipment. But when you look at that from an enterprise point of view, there's a lot of existing hardware, a lot of applications, a lot of software that were written before any of this was conceived. And there are a lot of concerns, principal concerns like security, compliance, as we just heard in the previous session, and then concerns around performance. And the very first generation of cloud was very effective at bringing test dev environments, providing backup and DR, And for shadow IT, our focus has been to really take mission-critical production applications, today's core of the enterprise, move that into a cloud, private, public, or hybrid, and get all of the cloud efficiency out of it, make it secure, make it compliant, and actually generate all that agility and efficiency. So we've been around about 4 years now. We have over 200 businesses running on the platform, and we deliberately picked really tough starter cases. So we picked SAP, which is core to a lot of very large businesses, Fortune 500 businesses. We've now moved over 100 SAP units up onto the cloud. When you run it, we have some unique technology that lets us do it more efficiently on top of existing virtualization. But we found that it runs about 30-40% faster. It is much more agile. It's about 30-40% cheaper when you do it. And if you think about the implications of that, there's about $2.1 trillion spent on enterprise IT every year. You can pick up and move the large majority of that into a cloud, either your own or somebody else's. And if you can make that more efficient, more secure, more compliant, and more agile, that has an incredible benefit for all of us. And certainly for the CIOs and the IT guys out there, given the option, they would much rather focus that effort on the new core challenges, new business challenges, important new things, as opposed to keeping the lights on and just working with the existing equipment. So that's really our focus, and that's what we're doing. And we've been very successful. And after hearing of the world first there, I should claim a quick one. Last week, you probably saw an announcement from the SAP group that they have HANA, which is a very fast, in-memory, big data style application. So we already virtualize all of SAP. We've now integrated HANA into that as well. And the implications of that running from the cloud is SAP will run about 4,000 times faster than it did before. So when you start to see the power of cloud and big data applied to real core traditional enterprise, big impact.
Terrific. I would like to stick with big data, actually, because Kirsten, I think you work in that field, or at least perhaps I should say in the analysis of that field. Mm-hmm. Describe what your work involves.
Well, our work involves a social listening platform, also both from the analytics perspective as well as the actionable perspective for call centers, for people to interface with people, customers online via Twitter, to be able to have a social care center. So this has been a very segmented industry for a long time, and not a long time such it's been in existence, not very long. And people have really struggled with how do we utilize social data to be effective and effectively leverage and understand what customers need. But what I see is an opportunity to really create much greater context with the sentiment and intent analysis around not only the original tactical situation of I'm unhappy with service, I would like it fixed, to being able to develop much broader context around how do we actually solve our strategic problems as a company. So it really boils down to what does it mean to me, and what do I do about it? And I had a life in prior threat intelligence world as well as finance, and this was always the question that would come to me from customers is, this is really great. I mean, you can forklift as much data on to me as you would like. I'm actually not going to read it. I won't know what it means to me. I really need help. I need help discerning how does this impact my ability to really affect decisions in my business. And so what I found for a long time was that tactically focused applications really helped people because they knew immediately, yes, this solved an immediate pain point, but it didn't really translate into a strategic solution. So what we're really looking at is creating a bridge between that tactical solution and the strategic solution. And this listening platform enables us to bring in customer conversations and connect them to other unstructured pieces of data.
So the essence of this is the companies don't actually know very much about what people think of them.
Mm-hmm. They don't know what they think, and they also don't know how to connect that to other pieces. That would be sourcing data, that would be supply chain data, would be financial data, and what does that mean? What are the actual indicators that start to surface true insights into how do we plan for revenue? What are revenue impacts, either from a customer service disruption, if you're an airline, for an example, what has real revenue impact if it's a weather-related delay versus we have fuel-related issues, hedging strategies around fuel for airlines as an example, and how do we correlate those pieces together to actually develop solutions around real enterprise problems?
Yeah, I love the example you gave me earlier, which was when someone uses the term crazy about, I don't know, some guy making soap. The word crazy can mean a whole bunch of things, and you have to develop the algorithms, don't you, to understand the language that's being used on those platforms out there, the Facebooks or the Twitters or whatever they might be, to actually understand the sentiment that's being expressed. It might even be sarcasm.
Right, and it's dependent. I mean, and that's how we extract the data so that it gets parsed into a sentence where, depending on where it is in the structure of the sentence, the learning understands, well, this is an adverb versus an adjective, so it means this versus that. And what's interesting is then when you look at data, there are also the pieces of data that are challenging because sometimes sentiment seems neutral, and we'll have customers come and say, well, you know, how is it that 80% of everyone, they're not really excited or not excited? And so we have to be able to tease out more to be able to understand, you know, what is it about this that seems neutral, but in fact the words actually mean more one way or the other. So there's this whole custom dictionary set that we have to build in, and that's knowledge engineering, as we call it, which I find a fascinating term.
You end up figuring out whether the Mona Lisa is smiling or not. That's sort of the effectiveness, the
Right.
internet equivalent.
That's right.
All right, great. Can we, we'll move on now just for a second while we have to, I guess, because of the time. Michelle, tell us about Medable.
So Medable is kind of in the vein of big data, which a lot of people have been talking about today, and it's really about how it would change the world is that it empowers patients. Right now in medicine, I think data is very siloed, and what we see is patient is kind of an unknown entity to the hospital or healthcare setting. What we're enabling is providing patients with a face and an extreme degree of granularity about who that person is when they come into the healthcare setting to really optimize their care. So it relates to data from the standpoint of the electronic health record, and also this really great and interesting kind of patient-based data that's growing from, you might come to your doctor with your own genomic information. You may have done 23andMe, for instance, or you may have a number of body sensors. So how do we make sense of that and offer value in the healthcare system to you and provide you with a more structured and kind of beneficial identity to the healthcare system? So we're looking at using big data analytics, artificial intelligence, but our goal is really to empower patients and understand who you are as an individual for this concept of precision or personalized medicine.
Who are you selling this to? Who's your client?
Yeah, so our clients are actually hospitals. It's built as an enterprise platform. There's this interesting shift right now in healthcare where before it wasn't about attracting patients as customers. Patients had very few options. But the landscape is becoming increasingly competitive to attract a patient. And beyond that, there's an issue of health information exchange, so data portability. So hospitals are looking to have products that are very attractive to patients and also enable a patient to take their data between institutions. So there's this incentive through a mandate meaningful use, which is this reimbursement model that relates to patient data portability. So hospitals are incentivized to engage in these services for those reasons. But it's a window of opportunity to change the delivery of healthcare to make it more focused on an individual person. That's in line with what the hospitals and government want to see happen.
Professor Leroy Hood was talking about this last night, wasn't he? About P4 medicine. The idea of P4. Now, this is potentially revolutionary in terms of if you can imagine deploying this on all healthcare around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to be honest, if we're going to claim first, I don't know of another first enterprise platform for personalized medicine. I think that there's a number of solutions out there, but absolutely, P4 medicine is about understanding who you are individually, and it does involve cost reduction because what we want to do is offer the best treatment right out of the gate. So right now, about 10% of drug choices use pharmacogenomics. And we see that this will increase tremendously in the future, from something as basic as how do you treat your cholesterol to what chemotherapy should I start with. And this is what our platform enables, is this sort of decision making on the provider's end, because we understand you on a more individual level.
Terrific, thank you very much. Craig Wilkins, President of Zinc Air. Now this, revolution of a different kind, I guess, the delivery of sustainable 24-hour energy from the vagaries of renewable energy sources.
Yeah,
Explain
we're tackling the small problem of actually changing the way that you generate, distribute, and consume energy. And you know what I love about this conference is a lot of discussion's been around big data. And the reality is big data has only been available because there's big data storage. So storage has played a real critical role in development of computers and the industry as a whole. We believe that energy storage will have the same impact on our power and utility markets. You know, we essentially have two inherent problems, and that is in the United States, we have an outdated, inefficient grid system that it's nice to say we have a smart grid, but at this point it's fairly inefficient. I think there are quotes up to 25% of the energy that is generated is wasted in some state or form. And that's because we generate energy basically on demand. When I flip on that switch, that power has to be available. And what a battery allows you to do is essentially break that link between generation and supply and demand and use it more efficiently. I think the other problem comes around in the developing countries. I think we always talk about lifting people out of poverty, but if you got 1.5 billion people without electricity and another billion people without reliable electricity, it's hard to lift people out of poverty and provide them the basic needs, not to mention the infrastructure needed for commerce. And so where we're real excited is the ability to work with the countries in the developing area to develop microgrids with large-scale storage. Not talking about allowing them to light their huts or their villages, but really start to create the wholesale infrastructure that can start developing commerce and help raise those people out of poverty. So
you're talking about, to put it crudely, a battery the size of a
Walmart.
A Walmart.
so yeah, and I think the great thing and the people that we're meeting up here today is that there's an ecosystem that will develop. The storage is the enabling technology to make, like I said, be able to provide power when the wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining. But there's a whole ecosystem of software developers and power conversion companies, and a lot of smart people got to come to the table to come with an overall solution. We are happy to be the foundation of that, and I'm hoping that in 20 years I can sit up here like Vint Cerf did and be the grandfather of the storage solution that changed and revolutionized the market.
And the market for you is the poor world, the rich world?
No, I think it plays in both. I think there's plenty of places in the United States where you don't have reliable power that a battery provides a lot of services. There's weak transmission lines that a battery can support. I think you look at both of them, but in the developing countries where we see the immediate need, because in those countries they're using diesel generators to generate their electricity, and that's very expensive and it's very dirty. And we talked about it on the radio interview, is it's very expensive to be poor, but if you could take a renewable resource and team it with a battery, I can generate electricity at a lower cost and also be able to provide some of the additional benefits of renewable energy.
Terrific. I want to just now open this to the floor a little bit. I mean, I'm particularly excited. I hope I've communicated this, Timothy, that you have chosen this very platform and this very day to launch your product. Just explain to me, I mean, it's a simple question, but how do events like this affect the work that you do and what you're delivering?
The announcement of this event?
Yeah, well, no, an event such as today's, I mean, a meeting, a conference like this.
Yeah, these events really generate the platforms that are necessary for up-and-coming ideas and up-and-coming organizations to be able to announce to a broader audience that otherwise wouldn't hear us. So the ability to speak to the individuals that are currently in our target markets, that are currently have an effect on our industries, is really a powerful draw for companies in my position.
And you, Kirsten?
Well, it's the ability to really have conversations with a variety of people in a time when we are in a very significant transitional phase in this social world, to be able to understand how's everyone utilizing this, how do we leverage it more, how do we provide better context, and having these conversations around the big data question, but also this just transition between our physical world and the cyber world that we're moving toward. How do we contextualize that and make sense of it? And how do we simplify? The key here is really the simplification of something that's exceedingly complex so that we can learn how to ask better questions and give better answers and continually improve that dialogue. And that's amongst all of us, and that's the power of social. And to date, social has seemed a little bit kitschy in the sense that it's amongst people who really aren't that meaningful, and it's just a bunch of conversations, and how relevant are they? And what we're finding is they're extremely relevant, and they're impactful out in the world from a geopolitical standpoint, from a consumer standpoint, and from having individual voices actually being heard, and people want to be heard. So being able to have these types of conversations in a thought leadership perspective is really amazing and outstanding.
Simon, I am struck by the debate about big data and about what you're doing, and indeed what Timothy is doing, is providing solutions which, amongst other things, of course, you are promising a much more secure solution to the issues of data storage for companies. And to what extent is that multidisciplinary, increasingly now, for people like you? I mean, that's obviously what an event like this offers.
Yes, and it truly is multidiscipline. And that's why this kind of event is actually very inspiring as well, because when you think about the implications of cloud, it's really bringing together network, storage, compute, operating systems, applications, processes, people, connectivity, interaction between businesses. And there's no way that you get that working well unless you're actually able to mix and match skill sets. And you really see it in the way the old silos begin to break down. The big unspoken barrier to cloud is actually people and the politics of, I'm a networking guy, I'm a storage guy, I'm a compute guy, I'm the CIO, I control IT. Whereas the reality is business leaders have a set of requirements that should drive a solution. And something like infinite compute, which cloud effectively delivers, should be a tool that you harness to deliver that. And you've got to align all the various disciplines behind it. So I see immense parallels between what we talk about here and exactly what we end up doing. And it's very inspiring because when you hear about the evolution in medicine, the evolution in disaster handling, information collaboration, you can see how you can take those and apply the tools or the skills or the security, the compliance, and make them better. So I think it's sort of 1 + 1 = 10.
Michelle, the point, I think, one of the more interesting points I took from Dr. Hood said was that one of the greatest obstacles to P4 medicine, as he saw it, the solutions that he was advocating, was the conservatism of physicians. I don't want you to cast rocks at people who might be your customers or your clients, but is that something that echoes with you?
I mean, I think that there's great ideas, there's great possibilities, but it comes down to actionable insights. And not only that is actually working it into the traditional workflow or the way in which we work ourselves. So I think there's an opportunity for change, definitely. At the end of the day, all of these things need to make our lives easier, otherwise they don't end up being adopted. And so, what I've seen in medicine is that the solutions are atrocious. They are not they're not aesthetically pleasing, they are time consuming, and the bar is pretty low in terms of what we can do to make the opportunity better in the way we interface with technology in medicine. But definitely the usability will be the driving factor in adoption. It's there. Right now, physicians text message patient data. We created a very simple technology that was for physician image sharing, and it's been hugely adopted because among our current users, because it actually makes your life easier. And that's the key. All of this has to make life easier. That's where we see viral adoption. But if it doesn't make it easier, we'll stick with the old methods.
Is there a software solution you're offering? I mean, or is it more than that? Is it more about just a holistic approach? I mean, a kind of mindset?
Yeah, I mean, it's primarily deployed on mobile because that's what we see most people use is their mobile device. It's the easiest thing. We have it in the room with patients. Patients have their mobile device wherever they are. So, the physical deployment is on the mobile phone, which is, again, I think, fascinating that in 2016 there will be more mobile phones than human beings on the face of the planet. And I don't think that opportunity can be understated in what that offers us to improve humanity.
Craig, do you still have a willing audience in the United States for the product that you're serving, do you think, at the administrative government level?
Yeah. Well, I think whether the government's involved or not, I always said if you write a business plan around government subsidies, it's a bad business plan. So we originally went out and looked at the major reasons why storage wasn't being adopted. First one was cost. Obviously, it was too expensive out on the market. The second one really ended up being around scale, that you took a small battery and you're going to put it in a big shipping container and call it grid scale storage. And the last one was safety. And I think what we ended up doing to take a look and begin with the end in mind here was to find the right chemistry that was a low-cost chemistry as well as the materials used in construction. So we believe we get through that cost issue, which irregardless of what the government does, the utilities will use it if it's inexpensive enough. The scalability was, if you're going to go big, you better start big. And if you go outside and look at our table, we got a size of one of our cells versus a small little lithium cell. And so scale was a technological hurdle that we've overcome. And the last one's safety. And it's really cool to go on YouTube and watch a lithium battery explode in a laptop. It's really not so cool if it's in a 10 megawatt battery system. So it's we've really gone after trying to not make government be the hurdle, but we also know that there's regulatory issues that either can benefit or hurt us. Right now, it's still the Wild West. And so I would say that the government is very receptive to storage because they know the inherent problems that are faced here in the local markets.
Well, good luck to you all. Thank you very much for joining us. That's the end of our session. We've been with today, a repeat, Craig Wilkins, Kirsten Bay, Michelle Longmire, Simon Aspinall and Timothy Mitchell, and by all means approach any of them, of course, afterwards for more specific questions that I haven't had the wit to ask. Thank you very much.